Hi, everybody. John Haldi here, and I am delighted to have Joe Boler and Andrew Martens back from Assured Partners. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us again, John.
Yep. Thanks for having us, John.
So last time we spoke, you all did a spectacular job of explaining part one of three of shopping for insurance as a TSP, in which you explained the difference between auto liability, non-trucking liability, and physical damage or FISDAM. So thank you for putting all that together for us. Today, we're going to tackle the elephant in the room, workers' comp. The wonderfully complex and mysterious and hard to get your brain around topic of workers' comp with all its complexity, yet the really big ticket item for TSPs, and the place I believe where if you don't pay attention to it, it could eat you alive, but if you pay attention to it, it's manageable, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So once again, I am the complete dunce in the room. So I am going to turn the floor over to you and ask your forgiveness in advance for me asking a bunch of newbie questions when you guys start talking, with terms I don't get and topics that don't make sense to me. Is that fair?
Yep. And it's actually, I think it's helpful to probably most of the viewers, John, that you don't know a lot. And sometimes I think basic questions that, actually will help kind of alleviate and answer some things for most people on starting out on a basic level here. So, I think it'll be good.
Awesome. Now, you all, when you presented this in Dallas recently, you had a PowerPoint deck that helped as a storyboard to carry the conversation. Is that something you can share again?
Yep. Yeah, we're basically, we've moved it around a little bit. But we're going to use the same thing. And we're going to, John, I think our initial goal here today is let's let people understand the basics. We're going to do kind of a high level overview. Down at the show, the work comp was, we just ran out of time. We can go on for, frankly, hours and hours and hours about workers' compensation. And so today we'd like to keep it high level overview. Let's hit the kind of the big topics of, again, what we're talking about here is what are some of the biggest mistakes and misunderstandings that we come across when we meet other contractors that want to take a look at their work comp insurance. So high level overview, let's understand the basics, and then we can, if we need to do more sessions or go deeper on other videos, we're happy to do that. Or if people just want to call us and bounce a question off us, we can do that too. So
that's great. I would give as an analogy, my wife's getting ready to reno the house. We're going to talk about how to engage contractors, the pros and cons, how to use different tradesmen, that kind of thing. But we're not getting down to the specifics of which faucets you want to pick and paint colors, right?
Right.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I will try
Fair
to
enough.
stay out of the weeds as best I can.
Okay, let me share my screen. All right, John, Andrew, you guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. I always got to get my little red highlighter. You can see my red highlighter moving around.
Yes.
So,
Yes, the cats are going crazy.
All right, great. So again, work comp, how do I control my costs? Listen, we're only going to cover part of it today. There's so many factors on how a line haul contractor can control their cost on work comp. And as I said, we can go on for hours and hours and hours about this. So,
but we're not going to, so don't panic.
No, we're not going to. Yeah, we're not going to. It'd be too much. So again, high level overview, kind of four separate boxes here. Why does every contractor pay something different for their workers' compensation insurance, right? It's all the same coverage. Why is everybody's cost different? There's more factors than this, John, but again, for simplicity purposes, every single state files their own rates, right? Independent of any insurance carrier, okay? Then insurance carriers file what's called loss cost multipliers that are applied to the state rates. And every insurance carrier has a different loss cost multiplier based on the size of their company, the appetite in the industry, how that industry has performed on their book of business. So every insurance carrier, with the exception of a few states, are going to have different rates that they file on top of what the state that they're in releases. Okay. Another huge factor that we're going to spend some time on today is workers' compensation experience mod. So experience mod is always applied to every contractor's workers' compensation policy. And then on top of the mod, every insurance carrier can apply schedule credit or a debit based on their perception of the risk, their perception of that contractor, if you will, and their history and their performance, geographical area, their size, what their losses look like, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And again, we'll dive deeper into this stuff. But as an overview, these are the big ones up front that make a big difference into everybody's price.
So just at a high level, to make sure I understand this, each state gets to sort of set the platform, the baseline. And then
Correct.
the insurance carriers get to use that and say, well, we've had a lot of losses in this state. We've got to have higher premiums, or we're doing good, we can have lower premiums, but they get to set some sort of multiple on that. And then they look at each TSP and they go, well, that guy's running a horrifically bad operation according to his history. He's going to pay more than this person who's doing a great job with safety, worker safety, right? So there's that layer. And then they can even go so far as to say, well, that guy looks riskier to me, and I'm going to jack their premiums versus this one who seems to be on a better path. So looking back and then looking forward, is that fair?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So even to dive in a little deeper on that, as well as there are contractors out there that have the one-off losses that have destroyed their experience mod. Well, the underwriters understand that one loss, since they have to file their experience mod, they're like, well, this really isn't that risky of a risk for us. And so they'll give you scheduled credit to offset the cost that the mod is doing for you.
Okay, gotcha. And just to make sure I understand, because my experience in getting workers' comp for my own firm, someone who is a steel worker in a big city hammering bolts in 48 stories above the ground and climbing girders with safety lines is a very different risk profile for that individual worker compared to the person at the construction company who sits in front of the computer sending emails and reviewing plans, right? So each person gets a category and that goes into baking the cake. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But TSPs have higher risk things because they're driving trucks and getting in and out and hooking up multi-ton pieces of equipment, right?
Yeah, they're driving missiles down the road.
Right. But the
Right.
person in the office doing the bookkeeping, that person's going to be a lower cost to the TSP, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm on the same page.
Okay. So we want to start with what is an experience mod. Okay. And by the way, John, I should a little kudos to Andrew. We should say, I don't know if people can see his title there, CWCC. Andrew's actually a certified work comp counselor. So if you really want to get real deep in the weeds on calculations and these things, Andrew's got the designation to go along with that. What is an experience mod? One of the biggest misconceptions, before I kind of tell you what this is and somewhat how it's calculated, is the experience mod is a factor based on how you're performing within your industry against all of your other peers. Okay. And what it is, it's a way to reward employers that are high on safety and discipline employers that are low on. Okay. So a contractor that's very conscious of safety and doesn't have many work comp claims or controls those claims very, very well will be rewarded within their experience mod. A contractor that has a whole bunch of claims and doesn't manage them well can be disciplined, and it can really eat you up with the experience mod. Okay, so Andrew, go ahead, John. Were you going to ask something?
In my simplification in my mind, because this is all new to me, if I think of it like a credit score, which will determine if I get lower or higher rates on a credit card or a loan or a mortgage, is that a fair parallel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I think I'm going to show, so most contractors that are going to be watching this, their experience mod is going to be calculated by the NCCI. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag over. I'm sure everybody by now, if you watched our auto video and are now listening to me, you can probably tell that I live in Minnesota based on my accent. This is a snippet of an experience mod from somebody in Minnesota. Okay. And I think the Minnesota one, I'm a little biased because I live here, but it's easier to read than the NCCI mod. It's just simpler. And so an experience mod, okay, what the Bureau sets that calculates a contractor's experience mod is they say, hey, contractor, based on the size of your company within your industry, we expect that in 2019, August 15th, 2019, we expect, just out of the nature of what you guys do, we expected you to have $14,150 in claims. Okay. The next year, August 15th of 2020, why did they expect him to have more claims? Well, his or her payroll must have increased. So the size of his company within their industry increased. Okay. The experience mod will always be based on the last 3 full years of your insurance. Okay. So this particular contractor, they renew August 15th of 23. So again, this is a real contractor. Okay. And his renewal is coming up here on the 15th of next month, which is right around the corner. Okay. And his experience mod is 1.08. So everybody starts out, John, with an experience mod of 1. Okay. An experience mod of 1 is a level mod. It's not costing you anything and it's not debiting you anything. Okay. Anybody who has an experience mod above 1, that's a debit mod. Anybody with a mod below 1, that's a credit mod. We want to help everybody we can get to a credit mod. That's where you want to be. You want to be below 1. Okay. This particular contractor, as you can see, their experience mod is 1.08. So this is a debit mod. It's an 8% debit. Okay. So the mod is always based on the last 3 full years. So again, this contractor renews August 15th of 23. So John, when you're looking at this, probably your first time ever looking at something like this, the biggest question we get from contractors, well, where's August 15th of 22? Well, we're in that year right now, right? We're in that year right now. And at the time when they calculate this experience mod, that year's not over. And you could still have claims that happen. And also you have not been audited on your payrolls for them to calculate this.
So that's not the end date for the period. That's the date it began, the policy effective date when it started.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's always based on the last 3 full years. Okay. So in this example, and again, this is a real contractor, here's what they expected him to have in losses each year. What did he actually have in losses? If the actual is over the expected, it starts to tick your mod up, and it's with you for 3 years. So John, this account renews August 15th to 23. What's going to happen next year?
Well, if the problem year is 2020, right?
Correct.
Because that's where it was much higher, 65 and 18 versus 22 and 8.
Correct.
It's going to stay on. And the good year of 19 is going to fall off, and it'll really depend on what the new 2022 looks like.
Beautiful. You're absolutely 100% correct.
Teacher's pet.
Yep, teacher's pet. So this is where most contract, and I can't speak for every insurance broker out there that works with FedEx contractors, but I can only speak about what we see. Most contractors, the majority that we come across, they know what an experience mod is. They know what their mod number is, but most of them don't really get too deep in the weeds on how it's calculated, how the expected losses are derived, and how do we manage this, right? And again, I didn't mean to cut you off, John, but if I may continue there on that, again, what are we talking about here? This is not a sales pitch. We're trying to get across what are the mistakes that we see contractors make. And a contractor that doesn't understand how this can impact them, you're either going to get lucky and you just don't have many claims and you'll have a low mod, or most likely you don't understand it and you're going to be inadvertently shooting yourself in the foot and costing yourself potentially thousands of dollars for years because you didn't understand how this impacts you.
So I got to say this then. I said it's like the credit score, but from a TSP's perspective, it's really like the safety, the SRI score that FedEx is calculating over 12 months, but workers' comp is over 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
2 quick questions. We're recording this today on July 27, 2023. So
Yep.
as you mentioned, the period that would begin August 15th, 2022 still has about 20 days left in it before that period is over. So it's not here, right?
Yep.
When that period ends, will it immediately go in, or is there a lag time because they have to wait for claims to process through the pipes?
There's a lag time. Absolutely. So there's two factors when this bureau is I shouldn't say factors. There's 2 forms of data that are collected from the insurance companies in order for the bureaus to calculate your mod. So when this policy expires on August 15th of 23, okay, so that's the 22 to 23 policy period. Within a couple months of that expiration, the contractor is going to get audited on their payroll from the insurance company, okay? And another sidebar, there are a lot of contractors saying, yeah, of course they're going to audit me because they want their money. Well, yeah, they want their money and they want to make sure that the payrolls that either you reported or told them ahead of time are accurate. But the insurance companies are mandated by these bureaus that calculate the mod. They have to send these bureaus your audited payrolls along with your claims. So once the audit is done, verified, and it's accurate, that's when it's usually within a couple months after the expiration of your policy. That's when the insurance company then is going to send your audited payrolls along with your most recent claims over to the bureau for them to start calculating the experience model.
Okay. Second question. Above 1 means you're paying more than the baseline. Below
Yep.
1 means you're paying less. In your experience, sort of what's the range you've seen? Where are the tails for good and bad? What's the best you've seen? What's the worst you've seen?
The worst I've seen on a FedEx contractor was over 2. I think it was 2.4.
Okay.
So think about that for a moment, right?
Right.
2.4
More than
times more premium than you should be paying. The lowest, I mean, you know, as a line haul contractor, I think I've seen one around like 0.62.
I just wrote one last year that was 0.62.
Yeah. You know, I would say, you know, we work with P&D and line haul contractors. I would say as a P&D contractor, because let's face it, right, some line haul contractors do both, John. And I would say the average experience mod that we see from a P&D contractor, I would say is about 1.1, okay? P&D is way more dangerous than line haul, right? They're hopping in and out of the truck a million times a day. They're carrying these packages all day long. It's much more dangerous. On the line haul side, boy, what do you think? Yeah, I mean, the average, I'd call it almost flat. Yeah.
So 1.08, it's not great, but it's not go home to the family and say we're in big trouble.
No.
Okay.
No. 1.08 is not it's not terrible. Yeah, you're paying 8% more than we would like you to, but it's not the end of the world compared to your peers for sure. Right.
And like I mentioned before, you know, even though the companies that we work understand the industry. And so a lot of times, even if you'll see a 1.1 or a 1.2, you know, a lot of times we see a lot of credit to offset it, understanding that, hey, listen, yes, we understood on the front end that they're going to have a higher mod, and that's how they derive their calculation on their loss costs. But they're often giving schedule credits in those situations.
And you mentioned frequency of claims and then managing the magnitude of the claims to carry the safety score thing. That's kind of like how often you might get a speeding ticket, but then managing it to try to negotiate it in court from a 15-mile-an-hour over to a 7-mile-an-hour over. Same kind of idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. So again, this is, you can see here, Texas, right? So this is a contractor in Texas. And, you know, what were the expected losses?
Oh, assuming that's over the 3 years aggregated.
Yeah.
That's the totals. Okay.
What did they actually have over the 3 years?
Oops.
Oops. Right. 1.3. So this contractor is paying 30% more on their work comp premium just because of the experience mod. Okay. How is the mod calculated? Well, here's here's the calculation right here. Okay. And so,
Great.
yeah,
Makes it super easy to understand.
Super easy to understand. And so again, listen, every contractor that's watching this, contact your broker. If you have questions on this, call them. They can explain this to you. Don't try and do this on your own. Okay. We are the nerds. This is why Andrew has the designation certified work comp counselor. And let your broker calculate and let you know the accuracies of this and any questions on it. The other thing, I'm just going to tell you, we don't want to get into the weeds on this, John, but every contractor should be asking your broker, hey, okay, here's my renewal. Here's my mod this year is 1.3. But so far, based on my expiring year, what do you think my mod's going to look like next year? So talk to your brokers. That's something that you should start preparing for now, not waiting until your renewal comes up. Okay. Wouldn't you like to know, John, if next year it's looking like this is going to go to 1.5, right? Well, you'd probably rather have a year to know and budget for that instead of have it be a surprise, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Especially when you're going into contract negotiations. Hey, look, I already know that next year I'm going to hit another 20 points on my mod instead of where I'm at now.
Contract negotiations with who, Andrew? With FedEx?
Your negotiations with FedEx?
That's a P&D thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
TSP, it's here's your contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, though, there are quite a few contractors that do both.
Sure.
So I'll be devil's advocate on that. But yes, you're right, John.
Sorry, I have a very TSP centric view of the world. That's who I love.
Yeah, I know. Yep. Okay. So here's the biggest when a contractor has work comp claims, and you will. Okay. Yes, we come across contractors once in a while that they haven't had a work comp claim in 4 years. Well, that's outstanding and great job. But the fact is no matter how safe you are, how many safety meetings you have, no matter how much you preach on proper lifting or to hook up a dolly, claims happen in your industry. You're not just sitting in front of a desk like the three of us are right now. Things happen. And so there's two parts to a work comp claim. Okay. There's the medical part, and then there's the indemnity part. Okay. So I like to just use a sprained ankle as the analogy because it's a very common one. And it's a sprained ankle is one that can be very low cost, but if done improperly, it can a simple sprained ankle can actually cost you quite a bit. Okay. So John, you're a line haul contractor. Okay. And I'm your employee. Okay.
Okay.
I'm a visual person. People probably don't want to look this closely at me, but okay. So I'm your employee, and I'm out on duty. I'm out on my route or whatever, and I get out of the truck, and I wasn't paying attention, and there was a little rock or a stick, and I twisted my ankle pretty badly. Okay. What's your company, John? Haldi Line Haul? Sounds
Sure.
good to me, right? Okay. So I'm your employee and I twisted my ankle. Okay. And employees are stupid. Okay. They don't understand work comp. They're not worried about controlling your work comp costs. Okay. So based on the geographical area of where I was, there's an emergency room. Like I can see it from where this happened. Okay. So I'm your employee and I twisted my ankle. I don't know if it's broken or what. So I go to the emergency room. On average, and this is going to vary across the country, but on average, if you go to the ER under workers' compensation for a sprained ankle, it's going to cost you close to $5,000. It's expensive. Again, a rabbit hole that everyone's going to get heated on. Doctors get paid more to work on work comp claims than they do if I just went there on the weekend because I twisted it playing softball. Do I think it's right? Nope. But that's the system that we're all in, and that's how it is. Okay. So I'm your employee. I got hurt at work. I twisted my ankle. Instead of going to a normal clinic, I went to the emergency room. $5,000 for a sprained ankle right there. That's the medical. So I've spent $5,000 at the ER just in medical costs on a sprained ankle. Okay. That was the first day of the injury. So day one, I sprained my ankle and I went to the emergency room. Okay. $5,000 spent there. Day two. Okay. Hey, John, listen, it's not broken, but it's just a terrible sprain. There's no way I can do my runs this week. Okay, Joe, stay home until you get better. Okay. Day three. Hey, John, listen, same deal. I'm not ready to come back to work. Okay, Joe, stay home until you get better. On the third day, now, some states, it's 7 days. For this purpose, we're going to tell everybody 3 days, John. Okay. On the third day, in addition to the $5,000 that I spent at the ER, now the insurance company is going to start to pay me indemnity. They're going to start to pay me 80% of my wage to sit at home until I'm good enough to go back to work. Okay. So I've spent $5,000 at the ER and now a sprained ankle, well, at least a week, right? So 80% of my week's pay, that's probably not even realistic. It's usually 2 weeks, right? So if a line haul guy, let's just use a low average, 70,000 divided by 52. So there's $1,300 a week, right? So let's just call it another $2,000 out for 2 weeks. There's $2,000 in pay. So now we're up to $7,000, right? 5,000 at the ER and another 2,000 in indemnity. Now the claim is at $7,000. Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen, and you're going to pick up what I'm trying to lay down here. Okay. Actually, I'm going to bring the Minnesota mod back over. Do you see here, John, where it says medical only losses have been reduced by 70%? Okay.
Okay.
So instead of me staying home with a sprained ankle, if you would have just brought me back to work, sure, I can't drive, but maybe I can come in and help with scheduling. I can clean bathrooms. I can ride shotgun with somebody and just help them watch out for bad traffic for 2 weeks. Okay. If you would have brought me back instead of had me at home paying indemnity, that $5,000 will have been reduced by 70% before it goes into the experience mod calculation.
Not the cost to the ER, but what you're getting dinged on for your credits, your mod score.
The $5,000 that I spent at the emergency room will be reduced by 70% before it goes into this calculation.
Right. But for clarity, you still got to pay the $5,000 to the ER. You're not reducing the bill.
The insurance company is still paying the $5,000 to the ER. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. But because you brought the employee back to work, you're being rewarded for getting them back to work right away. Even if they're not doing their normal line of duty, but you just brought them back to work, you're going to be rewarded by 70% reduction.
Is this where I've heard people mention something called light duty?
Yes.
Okay, so that's light duty where they can do something that doesn't, their injury doesn't prevent them from doing something that's not physically intensive.
Correct.
Yeah, the only thing that is kind of mandated by them is that it has to benefit the company in some way. So they can go and put on their logoed shirt and go to a food shelf and deliver food, or count paper clips because we want to do an inventory on what we have in house. Anything that benefits the company in any manner is considered a light duty job.
And so that I understand it, is the 70% all states? Or is it different state by state?
Nope, 70% is across the board.
And work comp would have paid them to stay at home for those days, but now you're paying them. And so you don't have an indemnity claim.
Yeah.
Correct. And,
So-
and an employer cannot pay an employee to sit at home.
Oh,
Because it doesn't benefit the company in any manner.
Right.
well then question, the first 3 days in your example, hey, I can't come in, those are just sick days? The employer's paying those, but whatever the state rule is, then work comp kicks in if they stay at home.
Correct.
But the employer should have the ability to say, you're able to come into the office, so you're going to come into the office and count paper clips or whatever it is.
Yep. As long as that, so anytime anybody gets hurt at work, John, and they go to the doctor, and the first thing, you've probably been asked this question if you've ever gotten hurt during the week and gone to the doctor. Did this happen at work? Did your injury happen at work? Well, the doctor wants to know that, number one, because they're going to get paid more to work on that case from the insurance company. And number two, the doctor knows that if you got hurt at work, by law, they have to send you home with, here are, based on your line of work, the industry that you're in, these are the restrictions. Here's what you can't do, but here's what you can do, right? So as long as the employer is meeting the restrictions that the doctor gave, the employee has to come back to work. And if they don't, if they refuse to, well, then it could be grounds for dismissal of the claim completely.
Okay.
Okay. And these are just some examples, John. Acceptable return to work programs. Again, this is very broad. As long as it's benefiting the company, it's acceptable. Inspecting equipment, organizing files, cleaning, sorting invoices, washing or sweeping trucks, training new hires, tracking inventory, working in dispatch, wiping or cleaning surfaces, internet searching for deals on parts, organizing the parts area, completing paperwork, answering phones. Some of it's pretty menial, right? Changing light bulbs, anything that benefits the company.
And did you mention community service type work also?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's a soup kitchen, help feed the homeless, hand out food, Salvation Army, fold t-shirts, Goodwill, same thing, put price tags on shirts or, anything like that, would be acceptable. Okay. So we're talking about, right, if no indemnity on the claim is paid, the contractor is rewarded within their experience mod because that medical dollar amount is reduced by 70%. So what are the benefits of returning to work? Well, obviously, the huge benefit is that 70% reduction, right? The other benefit is by getting that employee back to work as soon as possible, meeting those restrictions, decrease medical, legal, and disability claim costs. Let me continue on and I'll elaborate on those. Employee morale. It shows that you care about them, right? And their income, and you view them as an important part of the company. Hey, we need you here. We need you back. We need your help with other things. Reduce time expense from lost productivity. Faster indication of workers' comp fraud. Okay, this is going to be a huge topic. Most contractors that are watching this, I guarantee you, at least half, probably more than half, have had a work comp claim and they go, this is bullshit. We know that this is BS and he didn't get hurt at work. I just swore, I'm sorry, but yeah, I know that they're saying that under their breath. The faster you bring an employee back to work on light duty, the harder it is for them to continue on with their lie. Okay. Keep an employee, and this is huge, and this is where we do see some disconnect from contractors. Sometimes they throw their arms up in the air. Well, I don't have light duty. Well, we just gave you a whole bunch of examples of things that you can make up or have them do. When that employee is just sitting at home, okay, so I gave you the example, John, that I was your employee and I sprained my ankle. Okay, John, if I'm sitting at home for 2 weeks, okay, getting 80% of my wage, after a few days, you know what? This isn't so bad. I'm watching Judge Judy. I got Days of Our Lives on, right? And what happens is if that employee's at home watching daytime TV, which we've all seen in every other commercial that comes on, have you been hurt in a work-related accident? Call 1999, right? This employer's attorney, this work comp attorney, this, right? And that's when, you know, I like this. I'm getting paid 80% of my wage. I don't know. My back kind of hurts now. You know, I think I need to talk to an attorney, you know. Well, no, right? Whereas if you just would have brought me back and kept me away from all that nonsense. If I'm at your office, John, and I'm stacking paper clips and helping with scheduling when my normal line of duty is a driver, doing what I love, going down the road and seeing all the sights, and I go, man, I want to hurry up and get better because I want to get back to my normal job because this sucks. I hate stacking paper clips. I hate changing light bulbs. I'm ready to get back to my normal line of duty. Okay. And that's the final, keynote here. Employees tend to return to their regular job substantially quicker when you bring them back on light duty. And the quicker that I get back to work, likely the less that I'm going back to the doctor and increasing the medical costs and all that stuff too.
And so even though I would be paying this person to change light bulbs or clean surfaces or do internet research for a week or two, and I think, damn, I'm paying them to do basically nothing. If I don't do that, workers' comp's going to pay them. And that's going to affect my mod for every employee for the next 3 years. And that's how I end up with a 1.4. And I go, oh, why didn't I just pay this person to sit there and do nothing?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Absolutely.
Plus the added benefit of I get 70% off on the amount spent on the ER, medical, for example. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. Indemnity claims. So again, medical part, that's just to go triage, right? Fix me up, whatever at the doctor's. That the indemnity is 80% of my wage when I'm sitting at home. Here is every state. And you can see some states, Alabama as an example, indemnity starts after 3 days. Arizona starts after 7 days. We tell every one of our clients, just use the 3-day rule. Because frankly, and I'm going to say this one more time because hopefully contractors are listening and watching this. Based on everything that we just said here about the importance of getting them back to work, if you're in a state where indemnity starts after 7 days, I hate that, John, because now the employee's already been home for 7 days. Watching the daytime TV and listening to this attorney and going, this isn't so bad sitting at home. So we tell all of our clients, regardless of what state they're in, just use the 3-day rule. By day 3, get them back to work. I mean, and I'm just using 3, get them back to the same or next day if you can, but don't let it go further than 3 days. Is a good rule of thumb that every contractor should practice.
And okay, Haldi Line Haul has domicile trucks in Georgia and domicile trucks in Maryland, in our example.
Yep.
The state rule that applies for a given driver is where the work is or where their home is. What if I have a driver who works in Georgia but lives in Florida?
So there's a lot of nuances there. I know where you're getting down the road here a little
This
bit,
is
but
too deep in the weeds.
yeah, so they're based on state regulations, they have the ability to file where they reside, where they work, or the place of injury. So
Okay.
it's going to be very state based. It is the high level answer to that question.
Gotcha. Okay. So my driver who lives in Georgia, works in Georgia, and the truck is in Oregon when he has his accident, her accident, whatever, it could be even Oregon that the rules apply. Okay.
That's right.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Again, the takeaway today we're trying to get across is don't wait 7 days. Bring that employee back as soon as possible. Okay. So now, John, this is so blurry. I apologize. And Andrew, I'll let you, get into this, but I do want to show this. And we showed this at the summit too. This is a real contractor, and this is real claims. Here's the 3 years, right? 20 to 21, 21 to 22, and 22 to 23. Okay, let me get my toolbar went away, and I don't know how to get my highlighter back. So hopefully everybody can see my cursor moving around here. Okay, so these are the claims. So here's the medical. So the first column, these are all medical claims. The next column is indemnity claims. Other expense could be
Legal fees,
copying fees, past, medical record fees, total loss. So that's all these 3 columns added together. And then whatever the amount is of this
that's
claim
put into the mod.
that's going to go into the experience mod. And the last column that we added on the far right within each year here is what if. What if on some of these claims you had brought that employee back instead of having them sit at home? So you can see here, this is a very common one we see. The medical cost was $2,740. That's nothing. That's pretty cheap, right? But the indemnity that was paid was $1,600. So now that whole $4,352 is going to go into the claim on the experience mod. Whereas if you would have brought this particular employee back, only $822 would go into the experience mod. Okay. Here's another one.
Hold on. Time out.
Yep.
Did I misunderstand before? The 70%, it wasn't 70% of total, it was 70% off?
Correct.
Yes.
Oh, that's not a 30% discount. That's a 70% discount on
70% discount.
Now I got it.
So here's another one. And again, we're not showing, out of privacy, we can't show because this is a real contractor. We can't show the details of these claims. But look at this one, and I know this is blurry, and I apologize. They spent $2,000 in medical, but they spent $8,526 in indemnity. Usually, when we see that, I bet that employee got an attorney.
Yeah.
What type of claim is so severe for only $2,000 in medical that you need to sit at home and be paid that much, $8,000? So this whole $10,597 goes into the experience mod. Whereas if they had brought that employee back to work on light duty, only $621 would have gone into that experience mod.
How come on row 1, the total loss is 78, but the mod input was only 18?
So every
row
state
row two.
Yep. So every state caps catastrophic losses. So it varies in between 17,000 and 18,500
Okay.
across the nation. So as you can see here in Minnesota, it's 18,500 here. So that's the most. So that was a single claim for $65,000, and they capped the losses so that it doesn't. I mean, you can't fix stupid, right? So unfortunately, bad claims do happen. They don't want to over penalize for a catastrophic loss. Based on their formula, they feel that it's fair that they can cap it at that 18,500. And like I said, it varies by state, usually between 17,000 and 18,500.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So again, listen, John, in this line of work as a line haul contractor, you are going to have claims once in a while just because of the severity of it or the nature of the claim. There's no way you can bring them back on light duty, but the majority you can, right? And the biggest, I'll call it objections that we hear from contractors as to why they didn't, whether they want to admit this to us or not, this is what we do for a living. We know is I got 4 new trucks that I'm trying to get delivered. I had 2 other people call in sick. I am repairing 2 other trucks within my fleet that I need to get back on the road. In the meantime, I had this claim. I don't have time to deal with getting them back and bringing them back on light duty. So it is what it is, right? That I hear that so much. And the other thing is they just don't understand this, so they're not focused on it, right? You really need to dedicate somebody, whether it's the owner or your BC, is they need to be educated on this because it can make or break you in your insurance premiums, okay? And I will say to any contractor that's watching this, if you didn't understand this or if you don't have somebody that's dedicated to this within your company, have them get on a Zoom call with whoever your current broker is and run through this so that they understand it. Okay. I'm going to go back to my thing here. I'm just going to show you. Okay. Again, this is Minnesota, and John, this happens to be a P&D example, but all the formulas are the same. Okay. So this is a workers' compensation quote for a contractor that has $500,000 in payroll. They have an experience mod of 0.9. So that's a 10% credit on their experience mod. They're getting scheduled credit of 20% on top of that. So it's saving them another $7,500, and their total premium is $32,400. Okay. Here is a contractor with the same payroll, but they have an experience mod of 1.5. That's a 50% debit. Let me go up. Same rate from the insurance company, same payroll, but they have a 1.5 mod. It's costing them $20,000. Look at the difference in premium. $66,000 versus $32,000 on the same rate and the same payroll. Okay. Why is there no scheduled credits on this one, John?
Because they aren't running a safe operation, so the broker can't make the justification that they should get some benefit of the doubt.
Well, the broker can always make the justification, but it's the insurance company that's not allowing that justification.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this is not, John, this is not to say that just because you have a debit mod, you're never going to get scheduled credits. That's not true at all. But it's likely that, hey, if you have a mod of 1.5, what does that mean? It means that you've had likely quite a few claims. And if you've had a whole bunch of claims, it's very likely that it's not as profitable for the insurance company. So now they're going to start to take away scheduled credits because they need to collect enough premium to pad for these type of losses that you're having. So speaking on that, I'm going to go one step further on that on something that insureds we see that they don't think about. And is it really their job to know, but it's nice for them to understand this. If you're a contractor, let's just use a 3-year period. The first year you had, 5 claims and it only, totaled 10 grand. But then the second year you had, 12 claims and that was $40,000. And then the third year you had 8 claims and that was $22,000. Well, in this example, if your premium's around 32,000, the insurance company's looking at that history of performance and they're going, hey, based on the history over 3 years, this is kind of how they perform. We're not collecting enough premium based on that history to pad for claims that we likely know are going to come this next year because of their history, right? They don't just say, oh, it was 3 bad years and you're never going to have any claims again, so we're going to lower it back down. The insurance companies want to make money. They want to make money, right? And so they're always looking at that history. And if they don't feel that they're collecting enough premium to pad for those potential losses that it's looking like you have every couple of years, they need to raise that then, right? Okay. Sorry, I went down a rabbit hole, but it's important.
Quick question
Go ahead,
about
John.
this. We're going to go back to the example. I have Haldi Line Haul and Joe Boler sprained his ankle.
Yep.
And Joe says, oh, my ankle, I can't come to work. And I'm a new contractor. Is it fair for me to be able to expect that if I call my insurance broker and I say, Joe has sprained his ankle, should I expect my broker to coach me on whether or not return to work programs are appropriate for that type of injury and how I make that judgment call to figure out, well, you can't push return to work because he had a gunshot wound and whatever it is, right? Like, is that something I should expect my broker to coach me on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what you're paying them for.
So when I have a claim, I should be on the phone to them, telling them what I know and getting their input and their advice as a professional with expertise to guide me through this.
Yes. There's a whole other rabbit hole there, John. But on a high level, absolutely. Your broker should be able to tell you, yeah, return to work and here's what you want to do. What we can't do, on a high level overview, what we can't do, we are not work comp attorneys, right? I can't call your employee. I can't talk to the employee's doctor, right? But I can guide you on what we know based on the laws of insurance side of it and return to work. Is that fair?
Very fair. Very fair. You're a counselor to me.
Yes.
But I still got to do it or someone on my team has to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Now there are, a lot of contractors that we work with, we get them set up with a third party that just does all this for them. I don't have a BC that, has time for this stuff. I don't want them down in the weeds on this. We pay a third party X amount of dollars per month or per year. They just handle all of our work comp plans for us and manage all of this. So there's that side too. But if you don't have that, somebody within your company needs to understand this stuff so that it doesn't drive your costs way out of control. So, John, this example we gave on this particular contractor, just the yellow highlighted claims, had they brought those employees back to work, instead of a 1.48 mod this year, it would have been a 1.37. Okay.
In terms of dollars, that might have been for a $500,000 payroll using your previous example, I would guess $5,000 to $8,000 to $10,000 difference in premium.
Yeah. Now, John,
I think we have the next screen shows that example of what it actually looks like. So this is the actual contractor here. So again, this one happens to have both line haul and P&D. And so this shows you what the rate was or would be or is going to be, and then based on paying those claims themselves, having them come back to work, what their actual savings is on a year. So it's almost $30,000 in savings. And now that's 3 years.
Potentially
3 years, depending on how they're going to perform throughout. But like I said, in this situation, they were trending in the right direction, right? Like if you looked at it, claims decreased over the 3 years. So their bad year is going to fall off. So their experience mod is probably even going to go down further the next year and further the year after.
Yep.
But again, so if you go back, Joe, to that other screen where all the claims are.
Yep.
Yeah, that first year they would have paid an extra $28,000 out of their pocket, right?
Yep.
And the year after, they're going to pay $10,000 to pay that employee. And the year after that, they're going to pay $8,500. So over the total, we're looking at 46 over a 3-year period. So yeah, there is a cost there, but now you're talking about $30,000 a year that you're saving. So even on year one, right? You paid that $28,000, you've just paid for itself.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense.
Again, that's why though we're also doing, if you look at this claim example, we're not saying that every single claim that a contractor has, it's possible for you to bring them back. It's not. Sometimes they're hurt severe enough that they can't, but there's always a claim where you can, bring them back. And that's why we highlighted the ones, again, for legal purposes and confidentiality purposes, we can't show you guys the details of these claims, but I can assure you the highlighted claims here are claims where they absolutely could have been brought back.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, we just wanted to show everybody, this is a real contractor. This is a real contractor. These are real numbers. Had they brought them back, it doesn't look like a huge drop in the mod. But again, when you look at the payroll and the scope, 376,000 versus 348, right? That's $27,000 difference times 3 years. That's 81 grand. There's a new truck. Well, almost.
I used one with 500,000 miles on it.
Yeah, or it's 3 deposits on 3 new trucks, whatever, right? Okay. So again, and then acceptable return to work programs, we've already kind of hit on this. Deductible options.
I'll go into this for a little bit.
Yeah. John, did you have any other questions on this for now? Again, John, I don't want to go too far because we can get really deep here. But is there anything kind of as a newbie on the top of your mind that you've got questions?
No, I think I get it. And I would just add from my own experience, just like I'm a fuel junkie and I'm an asset utilization junkie, I'm a data nerd. You start looking at a business that has margins as tight as a TSP's does. And if you let this stuff slip, you're eating into your end of day take home for your business. And it's just good hygiene to be on top of this stuff. And to your point, the biggest challenge is most TSPs don't have enough hours in the day or week. And this is where I'm learning from you, money can leak out of a business and you work your butt off and you think, I only made this, what's going on? And this is a blind side that a lot of people, if you don't take the time to understand this, you could work your butt off and have a 4% margin kind of thing when it should have been a lot better.
And work comp, John, as an employer is very frustrating. It's not fair. I tell everybody, you know what work comp is? It's a big game. The game isn't fair. So all that we can do is try and play the game to win, right? It's a game. Let's just try and play it to win. You're not always going to win, but your likelihood of winning is much, much higher if you know all the plays.
Okay.
Right. So, and as an employer, you don't need to know all the plays. You need to know some of them, but you also need to know, listen, if you're not being taught this, call your broker. You need to understand this. And every case is going to be different. Every contractor is going to have, even though all these line haul contractors do the same thing, as you can see from all the different states, and every state has different laws and regulations. Every state has different rates. Everybody is a little bit different, even though you all do the same thing.
But I'll go one further here. Getting employees back to work quickly and avoiding work comp fraud, avoiding someone stretching a 3-day outage into a 2-week or a 3-week outage. What you're not showing here, because this is just the premiums, if you got 8 trucks and one of your drivers is out, you probably don't have a truck moving for those days. So it just ate into your revenue. You still have the fixed cost on the truck payment and the truck insurance and everything else. You might be taking declines and losing points. It racks up. So this is tip of the iceberg stuff from a TSP's bottom line perspective, because having someone milking the system where you can't go replace them and you can't go to an agency to hire a temp driver for 2 weeks, you end up not having a piece of equipment rolling down the road, or everybody else is redlining, you're paying them overtime to cover that. So there's more costs to this.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Joe had mentioned before too, like, who wants to be counting paper clips? Who
Right.
wants to be, like, if your job is a driver, you want to be a driver. Like, at the highest level, if I'm a driver, I'm a driver. I don't want to be doing mundane tasks. I want to be behind that wheel.
I can imagine a
It's a lot harder
community
to get that.
service where you have to go load the music in for the 3rd grade choir so they can practice. That'll get you out of the room quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, real high level on this, deductible options. There are a few states outlined there at the bottom. So gross states versus net states. Biggest thing you got to know is the amount the insurance company pays on gross states is the full amount, whether you have a deductible or not. So if you pay the deductible in a gross state, the whole amount of the claim, regardless of what you've paid back to the insurance company, it doesn't make sense, right? Versus a net state where if you're paying the deductible, the actual claim is reduced by the deductible amount that is then sent over to the rating bureau. Highest level, high frequency or large claims, large number of claims, probably not a great fit for you. You're just going to be shelling out deductibles. But for the right contractor, it gets double the value, right? So you pay the deductible, you're reduced. And then on top of that, you get a deductible credit when going through that calculation. So in those states down below, Alabama, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Missouri, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Carolina, and South Dakota are all net states. And so in those states, a deductible, if you have low frequency or you're not having a lot of large claims, this makes a lot of sense.
So I got a question.
Yep.
I have a feeling the answer is it's too deep in the weeds, but I'm going to ask it. Haldi Line Haul, in our example, operates out of Georgia. Okay. I would have to choose whether I want a deductible when I sign up for the insurance, right?
Correct.
But it may be the case that if a team driver has an accident in Oregon, which is not on that list, it may be the type of thing where it processes through Oregon and the deductible doesn't help me at all.
So the actual domiciled state is where your workers' compensation is gonna be for the verbiage. So the deductible will apply in that situation where you're in Oregon, but you're domiciled in Georgia. The deductible still plays an option. However, they end up filing.
Okay.
Again, that's probably deep in the weeds, but if that individual is a Georgia employee, he follows Georgia law when it comes to the deductibles.
Okay, so I was wrong. It would apply. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's something to sit down and play what if with your broker and understand the nuances.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For the average line haul contractor, I'm going to say $1 million in payroll or less. Usually, this isn't a great way to go, just out of the nature of what they do. It really needs to be the right fit, John. You have to be a contractor that either you're just very liquid, you've got a lot of extra cash sitting around, or you're if you're a contractor that very, very well understands this and you know how to manage it and you do manage it, a deductible can be a wonderful option for you to control your workers' compensation premium costs and also help get your mod down. Mod down depending on the states that you're in. But deductibles can also, I've seen some contractors go to a deductible option, not recommended by us based on their history. And because upfront it looks like, well, the savings is unbelievable. But again, then based on their history and track record, what happens? They have another 1-2 really bad years and they ended up paying out almost more deductible than they paid in premium. So you got to be careful with it. If you're a very well-run organization and you understand this stuff, a deductible can be a great thing to look at. But you really got to be on top of your game.
But the hope is everyone will become very well-run organizations, and deductible is something they should look at.
Yep. Okay. I think just lastly then, John, we're over an hour here talking about work comp. What are underwriters looking for? And again, these are just a few of the highlights. Andrew, you want to run through this, buddy?
Yeah. So ultimately, a couple of the things, like if you have depending on your state, again, varying on your state, do you understand that you can break out if a guy's doing mechanic work one day and driving the next day, they have the ability to break it out. Now it's going to vary on your state. In Minnesota, it's 4-hour increments. So if you can break it out 4 hours in the morning, I'm fixing my truck, in the afternoon, I'm driving, you're allowed to break it out as long as you document it. So the classification review program, it just basically shows the underwriting team that you know what you're doing and you understand what's going on. Again, a lot of these things you're probably already doing, like your self audits, your payroll breakouts, pre-employment fit for duty. A lot of the things that you are already mandated to do, you're already doing, and we acknowledge that with the carriers. A couple of things, the nurse triage program, if you have a nurse hotline that's available to you, we always suggest using that. Anytime that there's a claim, have little cab cards inside everybody's wallet that works for you. Tell them to call that number, because a lot of times they'll direct you to a carrier, or they'll say, hey, listen, you're in Oregon, for the claim example that you said. You're in Oregon, call the nurse triage line. They'll tell you where the closest minute clinic is, or whatever it happens to be, to kind of help you on that side of it, to direct them instead of going to the ER. Obviously, if it's an emergency, you got to go to the ER. But in a situation where it's not an emergency, hey, listen, can you drive 0.7 miles? There's a minute clinic down the road, and get them in there. They understand work comp claims. They're well educated on it. They work with a lot of carriers to help mitigate the costs. Also, in a situation where, hey, that sprained ankle, oh, you just need to ice it. Like, they'll tell them, they're an actual nurse, so they'll tell them, hey, you need to ice it and take a couple of ibuprofens, and let us know in 24 hours if nothing's changed, and save you an actual visit to the hospital at all. And those nurse triages are free, right? You don't even pay doctor fees for those. Nurse claims management, again, same idea. Does your carrier have a nurse claims management program? Safety incentives, those are always big deals. We talked about it on the auto fleet, driver safety. Same thing with safety incentive programs. Hey, we've gone X number of days without a work-related accident. We're going to throw a pizza party, or something along those lines. Occupational.
Andrew, question for you.
Yeah.
Should I expect my broker to be able to walk through this questionnaire and give me a sense for each of these, like for the ones that aren't mandated by FedEx? What's the what if I answer yes or no, and how it moves the needle for my premium when we're quoting things out?
Yep. So like we mentioned earlier, the schedule credit versus schedule debit. Hey, listen, if you're doing all of these things, there's a highly likelihood that you're probably going to get some schedule credit. Obviously there's extenuating circumstances for everything, but that is their threshold, right? They want to make sure that you're trying to do all the right things. I told you before, you can't fix stupid, right? Like employees are employees, and they're going to kind of do, each individual is going to do what they do. And so part of it is, hey, are we trying to do the right things? Do we have all these systems in place? Are we looking at all of these things? And that always helps the underwriter's view on it. And this goes to show, like we have clients that get declined because, hey, they're not doing anything outside of First Advantage, or they're having a ton of claims and they just don't care. They're just filtering it out, changing carriers every year, different things along those lines.
I think John and Andrew, I'm sorry to cut you off, but John, we're doing another one of these. Actually, I believe the next recording that we're going to do is how to shop for your insurance. And so we can go way down in the weeds on this. And so I think what I want to get across here is, if I can read, nurse triage and nurse claims management. I think this one ties right into everything we went through today. I can't think of a carrier that we work with or my competitors work with that does not offer some type of a nurse hotline. Okay. And so I think we should leave it with this. What is a nurse hotline? A lot of people kind of, oh, geez, it's just a stupid, you call a number and there's a nurse that they talk to. It doesn't do much. Well, it really does. And for some claims, depending on the severity, yeah, it doesn't do a lot. But let me go back to the sprained ankle, John. Okay. I'm your employee. I sprained my ankle. You're with ABC Insurance Company. Okay. And ABC Insurance Company offers this nurse hotline. It's a phone number that employees call if and when they get hurt at work. Okay. And so I'm your employee, right? I sprained my ankle. Remember, what did I do? Well, I can see from where this injury happened. There's an emergency room down the road. So I go to the ER. That's $5,000 at the ER for a sprained ankle, right? Instead, I call the nurse hotline. Hey, this is Joe Boler. I work for Haldi Line Haul. I got hurt at work. And I'm talking to a live nurse at whatever insurance company that you're with, John, right? And the nurse says, oh, okay. Well, did you try some ice? Did you try some ibuprofen? You did. You still want to go to the doctor? Okay, Joe, where are you? I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, well, Joe, don't go to the ER. There's a Minute Clinic 2 miles down the road. It's on, here's the address or whatever. I want you to go there. Matter of fact, I'm going to call them so that ahead of time they know that you're coming. Okay. Well, a sprained ankle at the Minute Clinic under work comp might only be $1,200 or $900 instead of the $5,000 spent at the emergency room, right? Okay. So the nurse hotline is there to help. And I don't mean to always insinuate that all your employees are stupid, but I don't mean to say they're stupid, but they don't understand this stuff. And they're not thinking about when they get hurt, saving you money. They're thinking about, I'm hurt. I want to get repaired and this is bad. Let me go fix it. That's what they're thinking about. So by talking to that live nurse, it just helps them make sure they're making smart decisions. The other thing it does is it kind of gives a timestamp on when and where this happened. Right? And that's huge. Makes it a little bit higher by having a company rule at Haldi Line Haul. You get hurt at work, don't call John. You call that number. Okay. It makes it a little harder for the guys that threw their back out playing softball on Sunday to say they threw it out getting out of the truck. Because now they have to come up with a more elaborate scheme, right? For their lie. Because they know they have to call this nurse hotline number.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, but John, I really think, we should leave it at that. Again, we're just trying to keep this high level. And I think we definitely went down a few paths of some pretty deep weeds. I said the next one is maybe, we'd like to do how to actually shop for your insurance, but there might even need to be let's see how people respond to this. There might need to be a work comp 2.0 or 3.0 or, whatever on this to go deeper into certain areas.
Well, perfect for today's video. Then part 2 on workers' comp are there other topics we need to cover, or have we run the gamut?
I mean, we can spend time just on rate. We can spend time just on, we could do an hour on what are the schedule credits per state. Really, I think if people are willing, this is the second video I've ever done in my life. So you tell me, John, I don't know, do people kind of write comments? Maybe we can ask people to make a comment or do a poll on, is there something deeper on work comp that they want to get into, and we can address kind of from.
So here's what we're going to do, because we are an hour into this. In the video, when we do the editing, we're going to provide Andrew and Joe and my contact info. You can certainly use the content, the comments piece in YouTube. We watch those, but you can contact us directly. If there are topics that you'd like to know more about workers' comp, please get in touch with us, because we'd love to provide that content. This is going to be up on Linehaul University and YouTube and other places. But the direct link to us will be provided here in the video. And certainly if you want to reach out to Joe or Andrew, I strongly encourage you to talk about your own insurance. If you want to reach out to me, I know as much as you do at this point about insurance, since you watched the video. So I may not be a great resource, but I am a good resource. If you say, I want to learn more about this, I can corral folks to pull that together for you. So why don't we bring this together now? And I want to thank you, Joe and Andrew, for taking your time to contribute all of this thought leadership to the Linehaul community. It's a huge value add, because there's no doubt in my mind that workers' comp is a big expense item, and it should be managed and can be managed, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I sure hope people, I hope they get something out of it, and it helps them out. So.
Well, Joe, it's the funny thing. All of us in the TSP community, if we go out to the neighborhood holiday party, most people run screaming when we start talking about work comp and dropping hooks and VMRs and fuel efficiency. But you get us together in Dallas, and everybody wants to talk about the same thing. So I know that every TSP should be paying attention to this, because otherwise they run the risk of losing a lot of money they shouldn't be losing.
Yeah. Anything that we can do to help.
Awesome. Gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Everybody watching, thank you for tuning in, and please reach out. We're trying to do this to help you, and your feedback is what's going to guide us on what the next step is. Part 3 coming soon: how to actually shop for insurance, what to expect from brokers, what not to expect, common mistakes made, how the process should go, and all that kind of good stuff, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Coming soon then, part 3, and then we'll follow on with anything that we get feedback wise. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it.